Welcome back, everyone. This is my video all about Daredevil coming back to the MCU and Daredevil characters showing up in Marvel Netflix characters coming back. We just got a report about a bunch of other series where these characters are going to be showing up, so we'll break it all down. There's a bunch of Easter eggs and connections, too, in the storylines that they're doing. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the videos. This will be happening on some of the Disney Plus series, but also some of the Marvel movies that are coming up in Marvel Phase 4. If you didn't see the news in the past day, there's a report going around some of the larger websites circulating that Daredevil Netflix characters are going to be showing up way more than you thought that they were. Last year, you probably remember all the reports about Charlie Cox's Daredevil appearing in Spider-Man No Way Home as Matt Murdock. Not as Daredevil, but as lawyer Matt Murdock. There's been all kinds of speculation about what he's actually doing during that movie. People claim that they saw him on set. There's been all kinds of speculation. There's just a lot of ways that you could explain Matt Murdock would be useful inside a Spider-Man story given the plot that's happening during Spider-Man No Way Home. Given all the problems that he's got right now, Spider-Man really needs to find himself a solid lawyer. Tom Holland did say that they had a funny way of addressing that whole storyline with Mysterio. Like, it'll be a little bit funny, but also serious at the same time. It won't all be mined for comedy. I've already done a couple videos about that, so I'll post those links down in the description. But recently, the bigger report about all these other big Netflix Marvel characters coming back just details all the other projects where this is going to be happening and how it's going to happen. And the next big character that it seems like they're bringing back is Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin in a bigger way than I ever expected. So that's actually really good news. Ever since the talk about bringing Matt Murdock's Daredevil back from the Netflix series, people have wanted Kingpin to come back. He's just way too big of a Marvel character for you to not use him in Marvel Phase 4. Vincent D'Onofrio is also recently liking posts talking about him being in the Hawkeye series, seemingly confirming those reports. I'm sure Kevin Feige was really happy to find out about that. It'll make a little more sense when I explain where these characters are supposed to be showing up. The next big place they're supposed to show up, though, is on the Hawkeye series later this year, which takes place in and around the New York City area because of Kate Bishop's origin story. Kingpin is supposed to show up as part of the mob storyline that runs through that. And apparently the people that were reporting Kingpin's casting in the Hawkeye series were also reporting that it was originally supposed to be Daredevil showing up on the Hawkeye series, which would have been awesome, but apparently there was some scheduling conflict with Charlie Cox. And that's what led Kevin Feige to swap in Vincent D'Onofrio's Kingpin character, which is still awesome, and that just on top of what's happening with Yelena Belova in that Black Widow post-credit scene teaser, just setting up one of the major storylines on Hawkeye as Yelena Belova versus Hawkeye. The whole idea is that Yelena Belova was given a contract to kill Hawkeye from Val, Madam Hydra, the contestant, whatever you want to call her, Julie Louis-Dreyfus's character that we saw in Falcon and Winter Soldier. She's going around recruiting herself a very Thunderbolts-looking team, but whoever is pulling her strings, whoever Val works for, is the person who wants Hawkeye dead. Kingpin is also a master at manipulating people into doing what he wants. But as far as I know, the Kingpin storyline on Hawkeye is not connected to the Yelena Belova storyline on Hawkeye. But the sheer fact that he's showing up on Hawkeye just canonizes more of the Daredevil Marvel Netflix characters. It's a little bit of a Star Wars situation, like if you remember how Star Wars, when it was bought by Disney, they put a lot of the older material, the books, the tie-ins, into what they call the Legends category, Star Wars Legends. But every once in a while, Dave Filoni, Jon Favreau, like on The Mandalorian, will sort of pluck characters from Legends out and make them canon again. Like Dave Filoni recanonized Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Where is your master? Where is Grand Admiral Thrawn?
So that's kind of what Kevin Feige is doing with the Marvel Netflix characters, starting with Daredevil, Kingpin, and reportedly Jessica Jones as well. But the reported plan for Kingpin and Daredevil right now is that you have all those rumors about Daredevil showing up in Spider-Man No Way Home. It seems a little more concrete with Kingpin showing up in the Hawkeye series. But during the Hawkeye series, they're establishing the Echo character from the comics, and they're already doing a spin-off series with her on Disney+. The report goes on to say that both Kingpin and the Daredevil character would be bigger characters inside the Echo series whenever they do release that. There's a big connection between them in the comics I'll explain in a second. But also on top of that, Daredevil has also been reported to show up in the She-Hulk episodes next year, which is also a New York City-based series like these other ones. Jennifer Walters' She-Hulk is a lawyer representing superheroes, mutants, other weird Marvel characters. Daredevil is also a defense lawyer by day, so you can see the logic in using him on that series as well. There may be some other small cameos from Daredevil Netflix characters like Karen Page, Foggy Nelson eventually, maybe even John Bernthal's Punisher at some point. But for right now, these are the 4 movies and Disney Plus series that we know about, that Daredevil himself, or Matt Murdock, or Kingpin are showing up on. I will explain what's been said about potential for a Kingpin Spider-Man crossover later too, because it already sounds like we're getting some Daredevil Netflix crossover with the Spider-Man characters. But starting in the Hawkeye episodes later this year, the report is that Marvel still plans on releasing it in late November, right after the Miss Marvel episodes, and both Miss Marvel and Hawkeye will have 6 episodes each, just like Loki and Falcon and Winter Soldier. So that just means the episodes will be a little bit longer, about the same length as Loki episodes. And the reason why Kingpin is connected to the Hawkeye characters is because of the Kate Bishop mob storyline. So the villains of Hawkeye might wind up being the Tracksuit Mafia, Clown. We've already seen a little bit of footage of them filming with those characters. Clown is a mercenary working with the Tracksuit Mafia that's part of the Matt Fraction Hawkeye run that they're using as the basis for the story. So if you want to read up on what's going to be happening during the events of Hawkeye, the Kate Bishop origin story, just read that Matt Fraction run. It's great. Madame Mask also might wind up being one of the villains in the Hawkeye series. There was a version of Madame Mask that they did way back on the Agent Carter series, but that was during the 1940s when that was happening, and it was a version of Whitney Frost before she became Madame Mask. So I don't know if they're planning on connecting that version of the character with a potential Madame Mask in present day, but in present day, she's connected to Kate Bishop's mother, who's actually being played by Vera Farmiga, and because she's a pretty big actress, it sounds like her character is going to be a bit bigger on the series as well. They might wind up combining a couple of comic book characters too, like they did in the Loki series with Kang and He Who Remains. Marvel does that a lot where they'll combine characters' backstories. The Kingpin connection is with Kate Bishop's parents. Her father has deep connections to the mob in New York City, her mother too, but her father really isn't anyone all that special in the grand scheme of things. He's just someone who gets tied up in a lot of really bad mob stuff, and that provides the basis for Kate Bishop's origin story. The MCU version of this will just be a little bit different because of what happened during Avengers Infinity War with the snap, Avengers Endgame, the blip, and all the stuff that's happened since the events of Avengers Endgame. The only thing we know about the timeline in the Hawkeye series is that it's going to pick up after the events of the Black Widow post-credit scene, which itself takes place a while after the events of Avengers Endgame, like at least 6 months after Avengers Endgame, because it seems like Yelena Belova has been working for Valve for quite a while. And if it wasn't clear from the events of the Black Widow movie, it's implied that one of the reasons why Natasha, Black Widow, was so willing to sacrifice herself during Avengers Endgame was not only because she was trying to save her Avengers family, like sacrificing herself to get the Soul Stone so that they could bring everyone back, but it's also implied that her Russian family from the Black Widow movie, like Yelena Belova, was also snapped during Avengers Infinity War, so she was sacrificing herself to bring her sister back, so to speak. Given that, it makes a little more sense why she'd be so quick to throw herself off the cliff, when a lot of people were like, shouldn't Hawkeye have actually died there? It sounds like where they're bringing the Daredevil and Kingpin characters into the MCU during Marvel Phase 4, they're just going to explain that the events of the Daredevil Netflix episodes were happening while Marvel Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3 were happening. So you kind of get a loose sense for what the timeline is. So you have to imagine that Daredevil Season 3 was ending just before the events of Avengers Infinity War, because they don't address it at all during that, and they haven't explained anything about whether or not Daredevil, Kingpin, or the other Marvel Netflix characters who are coming back were snapped, but they'll probably explain that when they show up on Hawkeye, She-Hulk, the Echo series, and the still rumored Spider-Man No Way Home connection. The whole connection between the Echo character, Daredevil, and Kingpin, because apparently they're all showing up during the Echo series, is that Kingpin hires Echo to kill Daredevil by tricking her into believing that Daredevil was responsible for the death of her father. And Echo's powers are a little bit like Taskmaster's in the comics. Not the version of Taskmaster that we saw in the MCU, but comic book Taskmaster. Echo has photographic reflexes. She can copy other people's moves, so she just copies Daredevil's moves when she's fighting him. It sounds like when she shows up during the Hawkeye series, she'll already be a mercenary and they'll just cover her backstory during the Echo series. Just in terms of potential Kingpin Spider-Man crossovers in the MCU, Vincent D'Onofrio has long previously said he would love to do a Spider-Man story, but that was a couple of years ago, right after they canceled the Daredevil series and all the other Marvel Netflix series. Long before Kevin Feige started bringing the characters back in the MCU, so anything is possible, but I don't think that Kingpin would ever be the main villain of a Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, but he could always get a cameo in a future Spider-Man movie. I do think long-term, eventually there's a solid chance they could do a new Daredevil season on Disney+, like a Daredevil solo season without him just crossing over into other people's series. Everyone let me know in the comments, what do you want them to do with Daredevil and Kingpin in the future of the MCU now that they're bringing the Netflix characters back? And because we just had the Loki series, yes, there is a connection between Kate Bishop and Kang the Conqueror through the Young Avengers, but I still think it's going to be a long time before they're ready to do a Young Avengers Disney Plus series or a movie. But if we do see any Easter eggs for those in the episodes, of course I'll point those out when I do my videos for them. Marvel's What If series is going to start really soon on Disney+. I'll be doing episode videos for that, so just make sure you have alerts enabled so you don't miss anything. Everyone click here for that brand new Venom Let There Be Carnage trailer and to listen to Kevin Feige explaining Venom in the MCU. And click here for that Loki Season 2 teaser and deleted scenes with Kang. Thank you so much for watching, everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys tonight.